JGT, what's going on,
My
brother?
man, Jhead, what up, bro?
Oh, nothing much, nothing much. Just got done putting the boy to sleep, and so now I'm on the phone with you guys, looking to talk a little football. Looks like you already cracked the news on the new football facility going over there on the track, and then maybe we can dovetail into some basketball team news.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. I'm pretty fired about the football complex because, man, they have really, really needed that. You know what I mean?
Oh, Jay, and I think probably look, Allen has really when he got here, he made a full cell evaluation on what needs to be done, and the football complex is going to drive everything else because once they get that built, and the word that I got is they're not just going to build a football complex. They're going to put new practice fields over there. They're going to also build a new indoor facility over there. I mean, we're talking about $100 million investment that they're going to put there, but that's going to set them up for success with everything else because now you empty out that athletics building and you can move other coaching staffs and other personnel staff in there, get them out of Beard Eves. You can take the old indoor football facility and turn it into an indoor track, which we badly need.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? And you can get donors. Donors are much more willing, specifically, in the Southeast here and for Auburn, to donate more towards football than they are to other sports. But it makes it easier to fix all those other facilities for the other sports that badly need those facilities. So I'm extremely excited about it. And those that are saying new facilities for a new coach,
Ah.
look, Malzahn has done an excellent job in the offseason. I really think that we're set up for an 8-2 type year and moving into an even bigger season next year. I really feel good about the football team this year. I like the way the schedule lays out. I think it's going to be tough the first 2 weeks because Kentucky, their advantage in that situation is the offensive and defensive line and the continuity they bring back. Where are we at? We're trying to figure ourselves out on the offensive and defensive line. I think we've got a lot of talent at both places, but it's new talent. And so they're going to be finding their footing those first couple games. But I think that the quarterback situation at Georgia is advantageous to us, and I really like Bo Nix because, look, I can tell you for a fact, I talked to somebody the other day, and Nix probably ate himself alive all season on missing that throw to Harold Joyner in the flat. I mean, just literally cringes every time he sees that highlighted and is insanely driven to be a much better quarterback. And I think Chad's going to get it out of him. And I think with the new passing game that we're going to put into place, I think the utilization of the middle of the field, the utilization of the tight end, and Chad kind of dovetailed into it a little bit with changing speeds. So Malzahn's thing has always been going fast. At least that's what he made his name on. It's what he's, you know what I mean? But the game has changed so much where defenses can now play fast with their one-check call. It's being able to keep the same personnel on the field and put defensive players in conflict. And Chad does that extremely well, and he does that by using the tight end, by being able to move him all over the place. So you don't have to change personnel every 5 seconds. And that's what's killed Malzahn these last 3 years, is he's gotten too technical and thinks he's got to get the perfect player on the field to execute each play, and it slows it down so that everybody knows what's coming.
Yeah, why not? I always wonder why you don't try to find players that can do more than one thing. That way you can still shuffle them around and not have to sub them out. You see what I'm saying?
Jay, me and you couldn't be more on the same page, but I think look, when Gus started the hurry up no huddle, and everybody forgets this, you could, as long as you were moving as fast as you possibly could, you could snap the ball as quick as you could. You didn't have to wait for the defense to adjust.
That's right.
And that's just, he got ingrained that way, and every play that he put on the field was perfect. I mean, he had diagrammed it perfectly. He wanted the perfect personnel. It's why he's kept a stranglehold on substitutions, because it's just ingrained in him. But what I will tell you is that he has the utmost confidence in Chad, and I'm not going to knock any other offensive coordinator that he's had here at Auburn, but there's nobody that he's trusted like he trusted Chad Morris.
Correct.
Or trust Chad Morris. And even when he got the job originally, Chad was who he tried to hire. I mean, I know that Rhett was who the coordinator was, and that's who he had as his coordinator at Arkansas State. But the first 2 phone calls that Gus Malzahn made to be his offensive coordinator when he took over at Auburn, the first one was to Chad Morris. The second one was to Mike Norvell. Rhett ended up being the offensive coordinator because the other 2 were settling in where they were. But those are 2 guys that Gus absolutely trusts more than anybody on the face of the planet. You know what I mean? As an equal to him is the way he sees him offensively. And I think he's going to give Chad that latitude to really put his system in play and be able to utilize multiple people, like you said, moving receivers in and out of various positions. I'm extremely excited with what they're going to do with Eli and Schwartz and how they're going to move them around and shift them in and out. I'm very excited about what I've heard about the running backs and involving them in the throw game, specifically Shivers when you get him in space. And I've heard great things about Mark Anthony and Tank. Both, I will tell you that a practice observer that I got to speak to today compared Tank Bigsby to a young Fred Taylor. That was exactly what he told me about that kid's game. And if he's anything like Fred Taylor, shit, Jay, we hit it out of the park.
Well, we know he's a player now.
He's definitely a player. But I think the ability, and I don't know how much you'll see it this year, but you watch, it'll be coming. When you can line Tank Bigsby up as the Wildcat quarterback, and then you can also play Mark Anthony Richardson as a tailback at the same time, get out of the way, it's going to be nasty. It's going to look like when you had, Darren McFadden and Felix Jones back at Arkansas. That's what it's going to look like. So, I'm really excited about our backfield. I'm really excited about the progress that Worm has made. And I think that Chad's system, as far as getting him in space, works for him. Now, do I think he's going to be a 15 game a carry back? No. I think he's going to be a 5 to 7 game a carry back. And we're also going to get him the ball in the throw game probably, at least another 3-5 times a game.
Yeah.
And we're going to use him, in an explosive way. And I think you could also see him being utilized in the slot at the same time, similar to how we used him in the Iron Bowl. But I think that they'll try to get multiple running backs on the field at times just because of what we have in the backfield.
Yes. There's some insane amount of playmakers in that backfield. DJ, Bigsby, Worm, like you mentioned, Mark Anthony, Joyner. Those are all those 5 can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. All 5. I think they got to see more consistency out of Harold before they really trust him. Where Harold, I think, can come into place, I think he can actually play some receiver, to be completely honest. I think you could see him as a big slot at times just because he's such a versatile athlete and a smooth athlete. But if Harold Joyner's your fifth tailback, you're deep. You have got some very, very good competition in that room if Harold Joyner's your fifth back. I will say that for sure. I think the biggest question on everybody's mind is the offensive line. Really like what I've heard about Brandon Council, his physicality and his willing to take coaching and what Nick's getting out of him right now. Really like what I've heard about Alec Jackson. And I think probably right now, Jay, that he is the odds-on starter to start at left tackle.
Interesting.
Which surprises me. I didn't expect that when this all started, but they say that his physicality, the push he gets in the run game, his athleticism, that they've been very surprised at how he has competed and transitioned to the left tackle spot. Now, does it surprise me that a defensive lineman has that level of athleticism? No. And I will tell you another thing. Rodney Garner, 2 years back, was the one that made the suggestion to move him to the offensive line, and not because he couldn't be a contributor to the defensive line, because Rodney recognized what his skill set and how transcendent it could be to the offensive line. And Rodney knows something about that because he was an All-American guard after transitioning from defensive line himself.
Yes.
So if there's anybody, game recognizes game, and Rodney thought that, the kid's going to play better on the offensive line. And to me, if he can be the next Ben Grubbs, who came here as a defensive lineman and moved to tight end and moved to offensive guard and became an All-American and, an All-Pro in the NFL, man, that would be the dream. But if he can just be functional, it's what we need him to be more than anything right now. Like what I've heard about Nick Brahms at center, he's been more consistent. He's been quicker getting out of his, out of his stance. I think he was still a little bit trying to figure things out last year. And I think those 6 games have really helped him, specifically from a leadership standpoint. So I'm excited what we're going to get at him. And obviously the monster on the right-hand side is Brodarius Ham and then Tayshawn Manning at guard. And from what I've been told by people that I trust, both of those guys are NFL players.
Wow.
That the light has come on for both. Both are NFL players and have that level of, have that level of talent. And I tell you what, man, they're a Nick Rinaldi story waiting to happen because you can't go through what those guys have been through, specifically the cancer, the losing of a child, everything that those two have been through, and not want to pull for them.
Yeah. They are both inspirational kinds of guys, absolutely. Particularly Brodarius. Good golly.
Jay, I couldn't agree with you more. Everything that kid has been through, and he's just, from everything I've heard, he's really taken a step forward from a leadership standpoint. He's taken a step forward from a pass protection standpoint, and the big has really been on him about how invaluable that is and how transcendent that would be to him being an NFL type player, because the power's there. I mean, he's got the ability to line up against any defensive end or any defensive tackle and really just manhandle them and drive them into the ground in a way we haven't seen since Brady Smith. He's got that ability to finish. He's
going to be one of these guys that like plays well for like 2 games. That's all it's going to take. And then ESPN's going to kind of get a hold of that. He's going to be one of those stories that like UCLA fans and UMass fans are all going to love. And they're going to know the name because of what he's gone through, the way he's just kept his head down and kept working and getting better. Like every American, football fan is going to it's going to resonate with them, and he's going to be like the superstar, the way Sean Coleman was.
I agree 100%.
He's awesome.
And I think the same thing about Tayshaun. I mean, that kid and everything that he went through, contracting cancer, his parents having to struggle to pay the bills, to support him while he went through all that. His transition from the defensive line to the offensive line and then sitting on the bench and then persevering. Both of those guys are just, I can't say enough good things about them and what they're bringing to the table. And like I said, from somebody that I really trust, they think both those guys are NFL football players. So they've got that kind of power, that kind of strength, and the light bulbs come on, and that they're taking really good coaching from Vic right now.
Let's talk about Kalen Newton for just a second. I mean, it sounds like he's been turning some heads as a kind of do-everything receiver-type player. Probably not a quarterback, but he seems like kind of like the new Cody in a way.
Definitely not a quarterback, more of a slot receiver. It shows good quickness, good hands. I think he's going to contribute. I don't know if he's in the 2 deep right now because I think they're experimenting with Kobe some in the slot. Because Capers is also playing at the 9 behind Seth. So I think they're trying to figure out what their 2 deep is going to be. But I've been extremely impressed with what you've seen out of Kalen to this point, or what I've heard about Kalen and his work ethic, his willingness to take hard coaching, his intelligence. And look, when a kid's played quarterback before, it's really a good thing when you transition to wide receiver because you know where the gaps are in the defense. Because you've been behind center, you know what you're looking for, you know exactly where you need to be. You have that understanding that some players don't have when they're learning how to run routes and how to open themselves, how to come back to the football, the things that a quarterback is looking for. So it's been a much more natural transition than I would have ever thought.
Yeah.
But expect him to get on the field. And look, everybody's got to be ready to play this year. Yep. I mean, you think about it today, we had 10 starters or 5 starters out due to COVID. Another 5 other players that are backups that were out. From week to week, everybody's got to be ready to play. And so far, from what I gathered, Gus has done a good job. Chad and Kevin have all done a good job in preparing guys and making sure that they understand that this competition, regardless of where you are on the depth chart, you have to have your head screwed on straight and be paying attention in the meeting room because your ass is going to be on the field at some point. Mm. You know what I mean? It's that kind of year. And I really like our depth. I like the character of this team. I like the leadership of this team, specifically on the defensive side of the football. And I like what Bo Nix is bringing to the table. I mean, he's not afraid to get in an offensive lineman's face this year and tell them, hey, you need to get lined up right here. That progression from freshman to sophomore as someone who's earned his stripes on the field now, someone who was freshman of the year in the SEC, he carries that much more weight now when he's telling guys what to do.
Yeah.
So, I really there's a fabric of certain teams, Jay, that you like the 2004 team. While it's not the 2004 team, this is a team that's going to lose some football games. This is a solid football team with good leadership that I really see getting better as the year goes on.
I agree. It's got a good feeling about it, and I can tell by the way they're talking about it. Auburn's trying. The people that I talk to about this team are very reserved right now, and typically it's the opposite. So, like, if they're talking a lot, that tells you they're worried. But if they talk less, that usually means they're more confident. And it's been a quiet fall camp so far.
I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree.
Let's talk about go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I cut you off.
I want to talk about the defensive line a little bit because Kevin was talking about how, he liked to have 18 starters. He thinks it's going to be kind of defensive front by committee, which sounds kind of bad, but you start looking at this roster, man, up front, they got a lot of dudes, man.
They've got a ton of dudes, Jay. And look, Rodney and Kevin have stacked that room chock full of talent with guys, okay? And until you get to see it up close and personal yourself, but I've heard really good stuff about Newkirk and his progression. Obviously, Truesdale is going to be your anchor right there at your one tech. I've heard really good things about Marquise, the big cheese, and as far as what they're getting out of him behind Truesdale. And then obviously they think that Dre Butler has NFL potential. I mean, they think he is just going to be a star. Now, I think he got slowed from a medical standpoint.
He did.
For a little bit of camp, and I think that he's still learning to play inside with his hands, because that's a big transition to go from when you're on the outside and you're head up with an offensive tackle. It's significantly different from when you got 200-300 pounders that are bearing down on you trying to break your neck. So learning to play that 3-tech is a little bit more difficult than some people realize, and specifically from how you play.
Yeah.
You know, play with your hands. Your conversion from speed to power, and the various pass rush moves that you're going to use in the interior. As opposed to on the outside. And he was specifically a strong side defensive end in junior college.
Right.
And I think he even played on the weak side in high school. So once he gets, a little bit more, I guess, used to playing inside, I think you're going to see that kid really take off. But I really like what we've got. And then Jay Hardy, to me, and I've heard comparisons, I know some people try to compare him to Derek, but the comparison that I heard from somebody who knows, somebody who I really trust their evaluation, was Nick Fairley, that he's got that kind of potential.
Wow.
Now, he's not Nick Fairley just right now, but that he's got that kind of quickness. He's got that kind of strength that when he puts it all together, that you could see one of the most dominant defensive linemen you've seen in the history of Auburn football.
They were fired up to get him now. They were fired up to get him.
Oh, I'm telling you. And it was a big get. It was a very big get. On the outside, like what I've heard about T.D. Moultrie. I know Doc Dumpster's like rolling over in his grave right now, thinking about that I'm talking about T.D. Moultrie, but really like what I've heard about T.D. Derek Hall is going to be special. I think it's a really, really good fight between those two right now. And realistically, I think if the first game goes, you're probably looking at even snaps between the two of them. I don't think either one of them is going to get the predominant amount of snaps. So it really doesn't matter who the starter is. But both of them have shown some twitchiness in camp, the ability, and realistically, we're going on about 2 years straight of not having that outside pass rusher that we really need.
That's true.
To push the pocket into the interior. I think we get that this year, and I think we get it from both sides, because I love what I've heard about Big Cat too, and his ability to bend and his ability to create leverage on the outside from the strong side as well. And backing up Big Cat, you've got a bevy of strong side defensive ends that I'm really excited about. You've got Handy, who's a full-grown man on the outside. Zykevius Walker, who they compare to Marlon, but probably a little bit more athletic. And then Kobe Wooden, who has maybe been the most surprising of anybody on the defensive line as far as from an effort, as far as from a contribution standpoint, and the light kind of coming on for him. That side of the football, on the defensive line, people don't need to worry. We are legitimately 10, 11 deep.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, they're looking for their Marlon Davidsons and their Derek Browns, and they're not quite there yet. But as far as the depth, the 3 deep right now, it's disgusting. It
really is, Jay. And look, I think from an 0-4 standpoint, the comparison to the defensive line, where you don't have your stars, like your Derek and your Marlon coming back, you've got some Josh Thompsons in there. You've got some, Jay Ratliffs mixed in there. You've got, what's the kid I'm trying to think of that he was everybody's favorite defensive tackle? I mean, just the nicest guy you ever met in your entire life until you got him on the football field.
There's a bunch of dudes like that. Senderic was the guy for me like that.
Senderic Marks was special, man. I'm trying to think. This kid was from the Auburn-Opelika area originally.
Josh Thompson, Josh Clayton.
Not Zach Clayton.
Zach Clayton.
He was a special one. Yeah, he was
TJ.
the guy that kept Nick
Tommy
Fairley.
Jackson.
Tommy Jackson, that's him. I love Tommy, but you listen. This team is chock full of guys just like that.
Yeah.
Except I think we're a little bit more athletic on the outside.
And I heard I got a whale of a scouting report this week on Tennyson. Apparently, he has just been an absolute beast. Like, he's not going to push Tut out, but they feel comfortable with him being the number 2 nickel and just rolling with him.
look, and it's not just him too. I would tell you that they have said that really good things, seen really good things out of Zion Puckett, that he's taken a major step forward, and that they feel so comfortable, like you said, with Tennyson and everything that he's shown. I mean, look, Jay, that kid is special. And like you said, he's not going to replace Tut because Kevin loves Tut. He loves his intelligence. He loves that Tut knows the defense inside and out, where to be, how to line guys up. He's just got it. But from a physical specimen standpoint, what Tennyson can do on the field, people are going to be surprised. And I guarantee he's going to be coming out on special teams this year and busting some serious ass. He is that kind of kid, man. I mean, he just lights people up. So you are 100% right. Tennyson has been a rock star. I love what I've heard about him. I love what I've heard about Chris Thompson, the other safety from Texas.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a really good replacement for Sherwood, because I think Sherwood has had the kind of preseason. If he goes out and executes like I think he will, he's going to be an NFL second or first rounder next year.
Damn.
I'm that high on Jamie Sherwood.
And Thompson, you mentioned Thompson just a second ago. That was an interesting recruiting battle because they went into Texas to try to take on the Longhorns on that one, which a lot of people would have said, why are you wasting your time trying to get a kid out of Texas? But it goes back to what Kevin Steele said, where we're not afraid to go get the guys that we want. And they just felt like that's the exact guy they wanted. We're going to go out and get him.
Well, and I would tell you that McGriff did an outstanding job on selling him on the SEC versus the Big 12, and how they're going to utilize him in Kevin Steele's defense, which is a pro-style defense, and how he'll transition to the next level. Whereas Texas defensively has been inept to this point. Auburn has ranked in the top 20 for the last 5 years running with Kevin at the helm.
There you go.
Credit McGriff and Steele for that one. I mean, and that was a big recruiting get. And look, I think he ended up being a 3-star by Rivals, but whatever, dude. Mike Farrell, as they commit to Auburn to go to 3-star, doesn't matter, okay? Our defensive staff does as good a job as anybody on evaluations and picking and selecting guys that fit our system. Throw the stars out the window. You know what I mean? If this staff really pursues a kid, and the offers from other teams match up, and this kid had offers from every other major school in the Southeast and the Southwest, the kid can play.
Yep.
Okay, and this kid is coming to Auburn. He's been serious. He's been dedicated, and he's come out there, and he's really shown up on the practice field.
He's going to be a player.
He's going to be a big-time player.
Listen, man, you've been on for 15 minutes with us. I don't want to keep you on all night. We don't want to wear you out, but
no, you go ahead.
What else you got? I mean, I want to talk a little basketball. I mean, I know you like basketball just like I do.
Sure.
I mean, Auburn's got a bunch of dudes that are going to be good this year. I'm almost positive of it. The question is, I mean, what do you think about this season? It's going to be an incredibly long winter break. It's going to go probably 5 weeks. That gives them a chance to do a lot of different stuff. Do you think Auburn's going to find a way to play? I mean, will these teams find a way to play?
I think they're going to find a way to play, just like I think they'll find a way for football to play. Number one, Jay, I think the economy needs it. And I think that there's so much money that's locked up into this that they will figure it out. I think we're that much closer. If we move that further down the road, now obviously I understand from a practice logistical standpoint and the closeness, in football, at least you have, pads and, helmet and mouthpiece and everything else separating you. Whereas with basketball, you're right on top of the guy. And it's going to be, you're going to have to be screened that much harder for COVID. But that much further removed, it's my hope that, we have medication in place, that we're that much closer to a vaccine, that they figure it out. And I hope to God that, and you can see this, and I would dovetail off of this when we talk a little bit of recruiting in football, that people don't jump the gun here and make a cancellation on a season or suspend a part of a season like the Big Ten did, like the Pac-12 did before, people are really ready to call it. Because I think that, there are some extremely smart people that will figure this out and think, and think of ways to make sure that we can get it, because not only do we need it from an economy standpoint, I think people need it from a morale standpoint. I mean, you think of it from a mental health standpoint and just getting some regularity back in our lives. Sports unifies people.
Yeah.
Sports can unify a country. Okay. And I think that, part of that is figuring out a way to put a good product on the floor. And I think that we'll do that.
Boy, Bruce Pearl's been doing that for a while now. You know, you can rely on him to have something.
He really has, and I'm excited about this team. I'm excited about Sharif Cooper. I will tell you that the biggest surprise that I've heard has been Turbo. Since he's come back, that he's been in shape, that he's motivated, that he's looked really good at the combo guard spot.
Big.
That Bryce Brown really, kind of took off here in Auburn. That he's looked extremely well shooting the ball. That he's played some point, but that Justin Powell has played more point than he has to this point. That he's looked really natural to two. That Devin Cambridge has looked very bouncy, very athletic. Is continued to shoot the ball well. Alan Flanagan has made some nice changes to his shot and has come in and actually lost some weight but put on some muscle because we're going to need him to play well this year, specifically losing Okoro. Don't like what I've heard about Jalen Smith at this point, and it's not really his fault. I mean, if anybody knows anything about Jalen Smith, he's from a backwoods, area of Georgia where there's just not a lot of resources for him to stay in shape there, but he came in a little bit out of shape, hadn't played a lot of ball while he was out. I think he's starting to get himself back into form. But I have liked what I've heard about Chris Moore, who is the epitome of what Bruce Pearl loves in a four. The ability to step out and play 3 and 4 at the same time and be versatile and just be tough and tenacious. That's Chris Moore. And then what I've heard about JT Thor. Both of those guys really can be contributors next year. So if Jalen's not getting it done, we got 2 guys that can step in, I promise you, and fill it up from that position. And then probably the biggest surprise out of all of them has been Dylan Cardwell and his ability to be a contributor at the 5 for us. I think we all knew that Stretch was going to be able to contribute, but he was just playing behind 2 really good guys last year. But having him be able to come in and having Dylan be able to come in and really be a contributor has been a pleasant surprise for us and makes us feel very comfortable about rolling 10 deep out on the floor next year.
And that's the thing. BP wants to run fast, and he can do that when he's got 9 or 10 that he can rely on, which is what I think he's got this coming season.
I agree, Jay. I agree. Now, where it's going to be interesting is finding a full-blown backup for Sharif, whether that's going to be Turbo, whether that's going to be Powell, whether they're going to moonlight somebody else there. Because we really never found a backup last year for McCormick.
That's right.
What I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it wore him out towards the end of the year. We don't want to do that with Sharif. I mean, McCormick was he was a senior, and his body was built for it. He was ready for it. I don't think as a freshman that Sharif is going to be able to run the gamut of a full SEC season and then have the legs to go into the NCAA tournament if we don't find somebody that can spare him 10 minutes a night. So we're going to have to find somebody that can be a contributor at the backup point guard spot. And I hope that that's going to be Turbo or Powell, but we'll find out. I mean, and I've really been impressed with what I've heard about Justin's floor vision and his ability to contribute from the point. I don't think he's a natural point.
Right.
But he's a playmaker, and he's a shooter. And he reminds me, from a playmaking standpoint, I'm trying to think of the kid's name out of A&M a couple years back. He was back a 6'5", played the 1, but he really was more of a 2, but was an insane passer. And that's the guy. That's the kid that he reminds me of.
The kid with the Lakers, the white kid.
Yeah,
Caruso.
You got it, man. That's what he reminds me of from a playmaker standpoint. So I think if Justin can be that guy, and then realistically, whether you're starting Devin or Turbo, you have a bigger point that can come in and play alongside him, so you don't give up so much size when you're trying to guard people in your 2D.
Well, they would love to have Turbo be that guy. It just wasn't quite there last year, but I mean, everybody grows. Everybody gets better.
Everybody grows, and of course, Turbo showed up injured. I mean, I think he had like a broken tibia or something like that in the offseason coming in last year.
He had a stress reaction in his shin, basically. Which
so
was tough.
He came in overweight, out of shape, having to, transition to the speed of the college game. And like I think I've said before on the podcast, is that, Turbo played competitive high school basketball in Florida, but it wasn't the upper echelon. So when you're going to play in the SEC and you're playing big boy basketball, and you've got a guy in front of you from, Philadelphia that has been through everything, you're just not going to get on the court, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You're just not. So I think that Turbo has really taken coaching well in the offseason. I think that he has really developed his shot. If he's developed his playmaking enough to play the point, I don't know. But I like what I've heard about him in that combo role for sure.
Yep. If he comes along, that's going to be a huge plus for them. I do want to wrap it up with you, Jhead. I mean, we've had you on so long. I know there's a couple things you still wanted to kind of hit on real quick before you left. Going to give you an opportunity to do that as far as maybe a little recruiting or whatever.
Sure, we can dovetail some football recruiting. Really like what we've done from the secondary. I'm expecting us to get 2 more big-time kids in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Everything I hear points in that direction, and I'm not talking about soon like as of right now, but I'm talking about eventually I think we're going to get him in the fold. I also think we're going to get the kid out of Tuscaloosa. And while he's ranked as a lower 4-star, guys, I want to tell you that I've seen him play personally, and the kid is lights out, lockdown corner. Be excited about him, okay? From an offensive line standpoint, don't expect us to take as many kids as we originally planned, and that's because, look, and J.B. Grimes didn't know when he did it, but there hadn't been a better year to take, 2 JUCO football players, specifically at the tackle position for us, because those were 2 to play 2 guys in Coffee and Zier. Now they're 3 to play 3, and that just increases your depth because nobody's going to be penalized for playing this year.
That's right.
That gives Zier a year to get healthy. That gives Coffee a year to gain weight. And if, Broham and Jackson are 2-year starters for you, now you're rolling into year 3 with those as your 2 starters, and it gives you time to bring in some developmental players in this class that don't have to be thrown on the field right away. From an offensive tackle standpoint, like I said, I expect us to take 1 to 2 more. Diego Pounds is the guy that I'm really tracking right now, and I think he could be the one that we make a move on. Everybody thought he was going to land with Penn State, but like we talked about before, the Big Ten shot themselves in the foot here on this football deal.
Sure did.
And they were trying to basically look like we care more about our student athletes than anybody else, so we're going to shut the season down. And now the egg's all over their face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's major recruiting battles all the way around. That affected J.C. Latham and his commitment to Alabama over Ohio State. I think it plays to our favor, and probably LSU is the other big-time team, I think, recruiting him from the Southeastern Conference. It plays in our favor over Penn State at this point. So watch that kid's name at offensive tackle. And then wide receiver, watch us be patient with Rock Taylor. I think we're locked in on him right now. Obviously, he's heavily committed to Tennessee, but if the season plays out the way I think it will, and Tennessee eats it and goes 5-5, like I think that they will, looking at their schedule, I expect a litany of decommitments from Tennessee, and I expect Rock Taylor to end up with Auburn.
Interesting. A young man from Oxford, Alabama. Hey, we've got a picture up right now of Armani Goodwin, the tailback from Hewitt-Trussville. Tell me about he's had a great start to the season. Tell me about what your expectations are for him.
My expectations are that he's Mike Dyer waiting to happen without the attitude.
That'd be huge.
He is a perfect fit for what Chad Morris wants to do in his offensive system. He is extremely tough and physical, fast. He's going to play at 200-plus pounds when he's at Auburn. He's already at 190-plus, and the kid can't be over 5'8". He is just rock solid. And explosive, Jay. And you don't know how fast he is till you see him in person. But he's every bit of a 4.4 back with some insane, really great vision, the ability to bounce it when he needs to, insane balance. Carnell Williams has stacked that running back room. Now, Tim got him started. There's no question about that, with a good group there. But Carnell has really, 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 starting with that class where he brought in DJ and brought in Mark Anthony Richards. And DJ's no slouch. I know that I was talking about the other two, but DJ is an extremely talented back. I probably would comp him to Cameron Artis-Payne. Similar type vision, similar toughness. Probably not that upper end speed that you really want to see, but he's a very, very good tailback.
Word.
And on any other roster, if he were on Kentucky's roster, he'd be the starter. But, he's competing with guys that are potential NFL talent.
Yep. That's just life at Auburn, man.
It is. It's tailback you, baby. And we're back.
Jhead, another incredible performance. I mean, you're just like an encyclopedia of information. I don't know how you do it.
Well, like I said, I get lucky sometimes, Jay, and things just pop in your head. But I want to thank you. I want to thank Brian. I want to thank Jeffrey, everybody in all these sports. You guys do an outstanding job. I want to thank young Nate King for all the information that he's been putting out lately. You guys are the best. And then I want to thank people for the bunker. For those that didn't hear my last phone call and the personal struggles that I've been through, I had more people reach out to me through DMs and emails,
Good people, man.
just praying for me and my family. I can't tell you what that means to me, what that means to my wife. It really means more to me than you guys will ever know. So I want to thank you each and all. I hope that you're all safe tonight and that you're all getting geared up for a nice football season for the Auburn Tigers, baby.
Jhead, thank you so much for calling in and sharing all that with us, bro.
No, thank you, Jay. You have a great night, okay?
All right, see you, Jhead.
Right.
There he is. I mean, is there anyone better? I mean, there's probably some folks that jump on the show tonight and they're like, who in the world is that guy? Is that like Gus Malzahn under like a pseudonym or something? No, it's just Jhead, man. Jhead knows what's up. He just knows what's up. He knows what's up with football. He knows what's up with basketball. The dude just knows what's up at Auburn.